Welcome to the Waste Campaign. I'm Jordan, a Grades of Green mentor, and here are the next steps that you'll need to follow to complete Phase 1. You'll want to meet with your Grades of Green mentor to help you get started. Second, you'll want to schedule weekly meetings with your own campaign team. Next, you'll want to conduct hands-on research to learn more about your waste stream and to discover actions that you can do to reduce the waste. And you'll want to sign student waivers and send them to your Grades of Green mentor. Now, I'm happy to introduce Analyst Jones, the Public Works Senior Management Analyst for the City of Manhattan Beach, California.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're really lucky and excited. In Phase 1, Research and Discover, we have an amazing expert to help all of you amazing campaign teams out there with your research and starting to think about how you're going to create solutions to waste problems in your communities. So with us here today, we have Analyst Jones, who is the Public Works Senior Management Analyst for the City of Manhattan Beach in California. With the work that you're doing now, how is it related to researching the waste stream in California and coming up with solutions to be able to reduce waste?
So on a grand level, my job is to make sure that my small city that I work for is compliant with state law and all of the solid waste laws that are in place. It's my job to make sure that the city meets all of those goals. And that can be through legislation. It can be through different programs that we put in place. There's so many different aspects. On a grander level, part of my job is to help people see the connection between what happens in their home and how it affects landfill storage, material facilities, how things are processed, the bigger picture. Part of my job is to help people see that all of that material that's collected every week is what is filling up these facilities or filling up the landfill. The average American disposes of 4.5 to 5 pounds of landfill trash every day. And that's about 1,600 to 1,800 pounds per year per person. And we think, oh, I'm not like that. I'll never be like that, because we do things in increments. And so it doesn't feel as bad.
That's great. And that's really, I mean, it's so true. If you think, day to day, you might not even notice how much waste you're creating. Every little, snack that you buy that has plastic packaging around it, or if you throw out half an apple because you can't finish it. But, over the week and over the month and over the year, all of that adds up to a lot of waste. But through your work, what kinds of different approaches and solutions do you work on to help tackle this waste issue?
There's 3 waves of attacking materials management. The first one is conservation. And this is obviously the goal. It's preventing the best of nature, not having to make decisions about materials when considering behavior change. The second one, regulation. And this is where you use controls to limit pollution. And this could be putting a policy in place, a new rule. It could be something that you do in your classroom that changes the behavior. And then last one is investment. And this is where you start building an infrastructure to create sustainability. So at this point, maybe you're getting a compost container on campus. And so you're actually creating an infrastructure on your campus or a garden, because now you've realized that you can't prevent everything from coming onto campus. You've done your best to regulate it, but now you actually need to put a resource in place to do something with the material that is there. And so that's one area. Another way of approaching it is the concept of a stream. And so some people talk about a waste stream, and that may seem like a weird concept, but imagine in your mind a stream, right? Water's flowing down, and there's different things in it. There's fish, there's algae, and it can be flowing downstream, right? But it came from somewhere. It came from upstream. How did those things get into that stream? And so the concept of upstream versus downstream. And in the area of materials management, downstream thinking or downstream practices are, I already have this material in my hand. It's already in the stream. what do I do with it? That's what you do downstream, right? Because you already have it. There's no going back. It's already in the stream. And then you get to the concept of upstream. And this is where it takes a little bit more thought. This is how you try to prevent things from getting into the stream in the first place, prevent it from getting into your hands and having to make a decision on, well, what do I do with it now? I don't need it anymore. You try to prevent that. And that opens up a whole host of approaches where you get into behavior changes, product bans, saying, we're just not going to have this around anymore. So hopefully those concepts aren't too confusing, but it breaks down the ways that you can start to build projects. You can build an upstream project or a downstream project. You can approach it through conservation, through regulation, or through investment. So those are some areas to consider.
We're so lucky to have you as the expert for that very reason. I'd love to learn if there's one key fact or story you'd like to highlight for our teams about why your work is important and impactful.
So in my job, I have to deal with both upstream and downstream practices. So a real goal for a city is to reduce how much you're sending to the landfill, all right? That means you've decided there's no hope for this item. We can't do anything with it. And so it just sits there and takes up space. And it can be toxic to the groundwater. And so from 2004 to 2017, the city that I work for has reduced its landfill tonnage 25%. Wow. And that is really what tells me that behavior is changing and that the controls that we're putting in place, which is regulation, legislation, different programs, different opportunities, that there was a change in the menu of services or what was being offered to people. When you try to create enough resources for them to have choices, then you're appealing to their better nature, that they're going to want to do the right thing. And so part of my job is to make sure that there are enough resources for all the different materials that may be in the stream. And seeing that reduction in landfill tonnage is very encouraging. That is exactly where we want to be heading, is to see that number go down.
That's great. And that's also something, it's so great that you highlighted that our campaign teams will be, measuring their baseline of what their waste stream looks like, how much of their waste is going to go to a landfill, how much is recyclable, how much could be composted and is food waste. And then, after they've implemented their solution, they'll be able to compare how much waste they reduced over the course of, a few months. So, and that's just a starting point, but I think it's great to be able to know that those results can even happen at a city level, and they can definitely happen at a school level too. You could reduce your waste 25 or even 50% in a pretty short time just by, implementing, having resources available for sorting and thinking of creative ways to be able to, help people help themselves and teach different ways to reduce waste. So I love that fact. That's a great one.
And I do want to share overall what you'd love to see is your landfill numbers go down, your landfill tonnage be reduced, but even your recycling tonnage. And that's mind-blowing to people. They think when you start thinking upstream, you want all of that to lower. You don't want to consume as much. You want to start reusing things so that it less enters the stream. And you just being excited about recycling it is okay, but what you really want to see is an entire stream reduction. And so that can be sub-goals of your project as well, so that you can celebrate the upstream changes that you're making in your school as well. And they're not always as obvious, but boy, they can make such a difference and a long-term difference. It's amazing what upstream changes can do.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those Those great words of encouragement. I think it's really exciting that we have campaign teams across the globe that are working to implement these solutions, and it's going to add up to a really big impact, not only now in the short term, but also, for years to come. So it's really exciting. So that actually leads in really nicely to our next question, which is, do you have any tips for our campaign teams that are starting on their waste assessments, starting to look at what their waste streams look like, and thinking about how they can implement some of those solutions?
Yeah, definitely. The first thing I would say is to figure out who your decision makers are in your local area. It's really good to know who's in charge of keeping track of the material and who's in charge of deciding what people do with it. That's a really important person to understand, and it may be a team of people. So that's something to consider as well. Sometimes things take time, not because people don't care or people don't want to help, but things are busy. There's so many people that need you throughout the day, and you want to be your best for everybody. And when dealing with a topic like materials management, it's not always at the top of everybody's list, but people do care. And so just remember to be kind, be thorough, be prepared when you enter a conversation with people.
Those are such great tips, and I'm so excited to see how they translate in our campaign teams' projects as they start to create real change in their communities. So before we sign off for today, Anna, thank you so much for everything. Are there any last words you want to leave our campaign teams with?
There are two things I would share. The first thing is try to appeal to people's better nature, okay? And creating that balance between upstream and downstream can make a huge difference, and you might be able to reach more people, which ultimately is the goal. We want to create a situation where everybody feels able to do something better. And so if you're looking for fast change, quick change, something to get you going, change yourself, change your own behavior. Go upstream with yourself first, and then figure out the tools to inspire other people. Be patient, be persevering, be kind. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for all of you, and I'm really excited to hear about all the projects. I'd love to learn more about what you all come up with, and it's just been an absolute honor. And stay positive.